Good morning, dear students. A warm welcome to a new session on financial markets. And in this session, the focus will be on the role of SEBI. So let me give you a brief history of SEBI. Security and Exchange Board of India, as it is called, was set up in the year 1985. And the whole idea was to regulate the functions of security market. SEBI promotes an orderly and healthy development in the stock market. The main objective of SEBI is to facilitate the growth and development of the capital markets in India and also to ensure that the interest of investors are protected. SEBI is actually the watchdog to observe the activities in the security market and controlling them. Now, a lot of students ask me, sir, what are the reasons for establishment of SEBI? Now, let me go into a little detail. The capital market witnessed a tremendous growth during 1980s. With the growth in the dealings of stock markets, a lot of malpractices also started in stock market. For example, price rigging, unofficial premium on new issue, and delay in delivering of securities. So there was clear violation of rules and regulations of the stock exchange and listing requirements. Now, under these circumstances, Government of India decided to set up an agency or a regulating body known as Security and Exchange Board of India, and it was established in the year 1988. Now let us look into the purpose and role of SEBI. SEBI was set up to meet the needs of three groups. The first group is called as issuer, the second group is called as the investors, and the third group is called as intermediaries. Now let me discuss in brief about each one of them. So for issuers, it provides a marketplace in which they can raise finance fairly and easily. We are talking about the business houses. Now in the second part, we are talking about investors. For investors, it provides protection of their rights and supply of accurate and correct information on continuous basis. The third group is intermediaries. For intermediaries, it provides competitive and professional market with adequate and efficient infrastructure so that they are able to render better services to the investors and issuers. Now let us get into the objectives of SEBI and understand what does SEBI stand for. So SEBI stands for protecting the rights of investors and ensuring safety to their investment. SEBI also stands for preventing fraudulent and malpractices by applying the statutory regulations. SEBI also regulates and develops a code of conduct for intermediaries such as brokers and underwriters. SEBI also regulates the stock exchange and the securities industry to promote their orderly function. Now let me look into the functions of SEBI. So functions can be broadly put into three categories. The first function is protective function. The second can be called as developmental function. And the third is called as regulatory function. Now, under the protective function of SEBI, we talk about stopping inside trading. We talk about preventing manipulation. Now, so let me explain them in detail. So SEBI helps in prohibition of fraudulent and unfair trade practices like making misleading statements, price rigging. It also helps in controlling insider trading and imposing penalties for such practices. It undertakes steps for investors' protection. It helps in promotion of fair practices and code of conduct in security market. Now let me talk about the first point, which talks about checking the price rigging. What do I mean by this? Price rigging refers to manipulating prices of securities with the main objective of inflating or depressing the market price of securities. SEBI prohibits this practice because this can cheat the investors. SEBI also initiated a probe in 117 new cases of market manipulation and price rigging in the financial year 2018. Now let's look into the second point, which talks about prohibiting insider trading. Controlling insider trading and imposing penalty for such practices has restricted insider trading at both NSE and BSE. Now let's talk about the third point, which says prohibits fraudulent and unfair trade practices. SEBI always restricts the companies which make misleading statements which are likely to induce the sale or purchase of securities by any other person. Coming down to the fourth point, which talks about investor protection. How does that happen? So SEBI educates investors by conducting online and offline seminars that help investors get insights on the financial market and money management. Looking back to the fifth point, that is issues guideline. SEBI issues guidelines to protect the interest of investors. SEBI should enforce the laws for stock exchanges to be followed strictly. Now let me take you to the developmental function of SEBI, and again it is put into 3 points: training to intermediaries, conducting research, stock market reforms. In the first point, SEBI promotes training of intermediaries of the security market. In the second point, it helps in conducting research and publishes information which is useful to all market participants. In the third point, we are talking about stock market reforms, where it undertakes measures to develop the capital market by adapting flexible approach like internet trading through registered stockbrokers, made underwriters as optional. Now let me come down to the regulatory functions of SEBI. Now here, point 1 talks about registration of brokers and agent. Point 2 talks about notification of rules and regulation. Point 3 talks about levying of fees. Point 4 talks about regulator of investment schemes. Point 5 talks about inspection and enquiries. Now let's look into the first point. It registers brokers, sub-brokers, transfer agents, merchant bankers, underwriters, and SEBI controls their activities. Talking about the second point, SEBI notifies the rules and regulations for the smooth functioning of all intermediaries in the security market. It also regulates the takeover bids by companies. It also regulates collective investment schemes and mutual funds. In the fifth point, we're talking about levying of fees. So SEBI levies fees, penalties and other charges for contravening its directions and orders. Looking at the sixth point, regulator of investment schemes, SEBI registers and regulates collective investment schemes and mutual funds. Let's come down to the seventh point, inspection and inquiry. So SEBI undertakes inspection and conducts inquiry and audit of stock exchange on a regular basis. And talk about organizational structure of SEBI. So SEBI was formed in 1988 as a non-statutory body. It was made an autonomous and independent regulatory body after the passing of SEBI Act 1992. It functions under the Ministry of Finance. SEBI has formed two advisory committees to deal with primary and secondary investors, markets. These committees consist of market players, investors association and eminent personalities. Thank you students for being patient. We meet again in a next video with a new topic. Thank you once again.